Well, here it is, and once again, it's time to go Inside EMS. I am your host, Chris Cebollero, and this episode of the Inside EMS Podcast is sponsored by Philips. Time to take pre-hospital emergency care to the next level. Time for Tempest. We are excited that you are here today, but with me always is the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour. The ladies know he's the man with the power. Kelly, Grayson, KG, how are things going on with you?
I'm good, man. I just got back from Green Bay, Wisconsin at the WMSA EMS Expo. It was a blast. Great people always. I love to go up there. They think I'm a little weird because the cold doesn't seem to affect me. I walked from the hotel to the conference center next to Lambeau Field, about a half a mile. I carried my coat with me. I don't usually wear a coat unless I get cold. And I walk in and they're like, "Are you in shirt sleeves?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I've got my coat in case I get cold." And they said, "Do you realize your hair is frozen?" I went, "Oh, wow, so it is." And
How cold was
not
it?
cold. It was 10, 12 degrees.
Oh, gee. And how is that from a guy from Louisiana that you don't get cold?
I don't know. I am weird that way, but I think I've never been formally diagnosed. I think I have hyperhidrosis. If temperature gets above 50, I'm sweating and I hate it. But temperature has never really bothered me. I sweat in hot weather, but otherwise I don't really notice it. So it doesn't bother me that much at all.
So is that hyperhidrosis, what do you call it? Hyperhidrosis?
Hyperhidrosis.
Does that have anything
Sweat
to do with your
excessively.
personality? No, but Kelly, one of the things, I don't know that we've talked about this, and we do a lot of talking as we prepare for shows, but I like to get into the stats
Yeah.
and look at where we are. So of course, we know that the United States is the number one country that listens to the Inside EMS podcast. There are actually 49 countries who listen to the show.
Wow.
What do you think? What do you think the second show is? The second country is? Because I was surprised.
UK?
I'd have thought Canada,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I can see that.
But here it is, Singapore.
Singapore.
Singapore. So United States, and here's the top few, right? United States, Singapore, Canada, Australia, Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom, and then we'll throw an honorable mention in there for number six. Is that six? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Poland.
That's probably our friend Mike Smirtka listening from Poland.
Just one guy? Is it just one guy?
Yeah, it probably is. But
So I
man,
want
that's neat. We're nationwide.
we're the podcast that's international. So
That's
some
right.
of the other stat yesterday we downloaded 311 shows. The last 7 days have been 1,315. The last 30 days, 5,055 listens. All-time downloads on this platform, 735,900.
And the previous platforms we're on several million
It was
now.
1.2 million before we transferred over to this. So we're
Okay.
about 1.9.
All right.
So, all right. Well, Kelly, one of the things that we do is we're always listening and reading our emails. And, everybody out there, thanks so much for your input to the show. We love your stories. We love how much the show influences you. We love how you tell that I'm the number one podcast host on the show and Kelly's a close second. And yeah, but one of the things that we used to do, Kelly, is we've been doing the show for a long time, and we used to have a lot of different segments. We would talk about clinical issues, we would go to the mailbag, but one of the things that we would do on a regular basis is we'd cover the news, right?
News, yeah.
So we would go to the EMS1 page, and we would just talk about the stories that we would see, right? Because this is what EMS is doing, right? When we talk about the premise of the show, we're sitting in the cab and we're like, did you see that story about? And we're going to do news today. So I'm going to let you go first and hit the first story, and then I am going to go from there.
All right. Yeah, our first story comes from Rye, Colorado, where the Rye Fire Protection District chief is under investigation after state officials accused him of responding to medical calls with an expired paramedic certification. And this is deeper than just, oh, I didn't get my stuff in by March 31st. This gentleman has been expired since 2019 and has been running medical calls and treating people, 294 calls between April 2022 and November 2024, but he's been expired since 2019. So you know that it's pretty, there's got to be more than that. And I just wonder, what that does when your chief doesn't think that certification is necessary and lets that out. What does that do to the operational, culture at the agency if that kind of message is sent from the top down?
Yeah, I mean, you're always a finger pointer, man. So,
Well, I'm pointing my face right now because that's my tick.
oh, I see. One of the things that I've been in this situation where employees have lost their certifications. And I remember in Texas, there was an employee that lost their certification and we didn't catch it. I mean, it might have been 3 months.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we got fined by the state of Texas was every single call they ran. And then let's not even mention the money that was billed to Medicare, Medicaid,
Yeah.
right? Not all that money has to go back, right? Otherwise,
Yeah, if they're not, if his response meant that they didn't have a valid crew,
right.
yeah, that's a big no-no.
So, but one of the things is it was very, very difficult for us to keep track of other people's certifications, right? But,
Yeah.
even I've gotten close, when you think about all the state certifications I had at the time, I was in Texas, I was in Massachusetts, I was in Colorado, I had California, I had New York. And sometimes it's hard just to keep up on all those things, right? But I can't count the number of times that, I had to remind people about their driver's license or their CPR card or their ACLS card or their certifications. We've gotten a lot more technological over the years where, whatever system we have is reminding us when we clock in,
Yeah.
you've got 90 days until your certification expires. And that really gave us a leg up. But this is a problem inside of EMS where we just forget that we have to do this, or we think we can get away with it. I don't know that anyone's ever gotten away with working without a certification, because however long it takes, we're still coming down to getting caught.
Yeah. And there are so many platforms now that allow you to track this from an individual and an agency standpoint. There's mine, there's Foam Frat, there's Boundtree University. There's so many different CE platforms that allow you to input your own certification information and send you reminders. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the vast majority of my clients are nationally registered. So the the surge in requests and activity on my site is from January to March 31st. It's like nothing like good old EMS people to procrastinate, but man, I'm getting test results and stuff, just a flood of them every day from January to March 31st.
Yeah, I mean, I got to think about it, man. I got my certification back in 1986. And how much longer am I going to recertify is what I've been thinking about, and that's a tough one, man, because I got to tell you what, to me, my National Registry certification is gold, right?
Yeah.
And it was hard to get it back in the day. It's hard to get it today. And I just can't imagine not having it, right? But how long do I really need it? How long do I have to take ACLS and CPR and
Yeah.
and do all the continuing education? I mean, I learned stuff on every single recertification.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's go to my story. So Kelly, you know that, and you've helped me with this. I'm working on my doctorate. And I'm actually in the research phase right now, getting ready to write chapter 4. I think I'll be done probably in May or June. So it'll be the Dr. Chris and Kelly EMS podcast.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, no longer call me Chris or Cebollero. It's going to be Doctor. So get ready for that. And please prepare to buy me a gift. I do expect a gift.
You'll enter that pantheon, Dr. Ruth, Dr. Oz, Dr. Dreamy, Dr. McSteamy.
That's right. So we'll have to figure one out. But anyway, the premise of my doctorate or my research is, and I wanted to do something for EMS, is we always hear that the lack of leadership training leads to poor leadership of an organization. I took it a step further to say, does the lack of leadership training cause the lack of resilience, then hence the drug abuse, the alcoholism, the burnout, the suicide, right, of our workforce? And I don't know what the hypothesis, I don't know what the results are going to be. I just have a hypothesis. It may come back that I'm totally wrong, and at least we'll have proof and we'll have research proof. But anyway, the reason I say that is because the next story comes out of Seattle. Washington University New Center focuses on mental health training for first responders. A University of Washington program addresses a critical gap as first responders remain the primary response to mental health calls in many areas, especially rural communities. And I'm going to take a page out of your book and say, good on the University of Washington,
Yeah.
because we have, and you and I have talked about this for decades now, or 1 decade, about how we have somebody who's sitting 18 inches away from us, and because we've opened the stigma of, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, they're not talking to anybody, right?
Yeah.
So kudos to the University of Washington, who developed this new program, and it comes out of the Behavioral Health Crisis Outreach Response and Education. It's run by the University of Washington School of Social Work. It held its first training Friday, and this article was written January 24th, so just last week.
Yeah.
So, but good on the University of Washington to
Yeah.
recognize the challenge, but not only recognize the challenge, because we all know there's a challenge, they're stepping up and they're doing something about it.
Yeah. And, that's in the aftermath of the George Floyd incident. And, people started to look at, should we send EMS and cops to every mental health emergency? And that's kind of a blunt instrument to deal with something so important and nuanced. And they started sending, social workers, these mental health crisis teams that are not strictly police officers and paramedics. But that's not really feasible in these super rural areas where it's hard to put two people in a truck anyway, much less get extra personnel on the scene. So, yeah, I'll agree with you. Kudos to University of Washington for coming up with a program to teach their responders how to deal with these. And the thing is teaching your responders how to deal with these mental health emergencies also pays dividends in the provider's own mental health. It's less stressful for you. You can see some of the techniques and the things you learn applicable to your own self. And, going back to your thesis, the lack of leadership, the funny thing is about this is most EMS leaders, with the exception of a few outliers, don't have specific training in management or leadership. They got their positions simply by being, longevity, longer than anybody else. And when you don't know what you don't know, and that lack of education, they don't realize from themselves on down what their people don't know and what they're lacking.
Yeah, and I got to agree with that. What story do you have for us next?
Here is a neat one, and this is from New Jersey, Hackensack, Bergen County, and Hackensack. We've got some friends in that area and some contacts in that area as well. And it comes to us, a large lot in downtown Hackensack is slated to become a city hub with office space and affordable housing solely for police officers, firefighters, and other public service workers. Please God, let that mean EMTs and paramedics, EMS people. But this is one of those things it's kind of nice that we, have these opportunities afforded to public safety people. There are federal housing loan programs and for first responders, police, cops, EMTs to help them with mortgages and stuff. That's a pretty powerful enticement to go to work somewhere. And quite frankly, a lot of these places have policies in place that you must live or work nearby to these things. And good on Bergen County and Hackensack for addressing that.
Yeah.
And giving their first responders some leg up in housing and their security.
Right. One of the things that we talk about is, and your better half, Nancy, is into the volunteerism and really is probably one of the foremost experts in the United States when it comes to dealing with volunteers and motivation and so on and so forth. And that's a free plug for her. So, I mean, she should send me a little something for that too.
She has talked about this very thing. She'll be really gratified to see.
But now it's good to see that this is talking about not just volunteers that are getting, tax abatements, and they deserve that for not getting paid for what they do. But now New Jersey is really kind of taking the next step and working on, housing for first responders and actually city workers, or that's really a great thing. So Let's go ahead and take our break, Kelly. And when we come back, we've got more news for everyone, but it's time for the mid-show read. So we'll see you on the other side of the break. Emergency care teams need to focus on patients, not their equipment. The Tempest ALS lets you automatically capture and share patient vitals, treatments, images, and therapy with receiving facilities and to your EPCR. To help you focus on what matters, visit usa.philips.com for more information. All right, we are back. We are on the other side of the break, and we are reading the news. We want to thank Mitch from Fort Lauderdale, who is telling us, you guys don't do the news anymore. Well, here we are doing the news, and we talked about a couple great stories. And I guess it's my turn. And one of the things that I really want to focus on is the fires that are in California. And, there's a story amid California wildfires, officials send mental health workers to evacuees. And I think one of the things that we see from our first responder side is our peers who are, these brush firefighters who are doing their best to make sure that they can control this blaze that has just been out of control. But now they're going to start to think about the people whose houses have been destroyed, their lives have been ruined, and they're using mental health workers to do that. So Los Angeles County deployed a team of mental health workers trained to comfort evacuees, track health needs, and assist those who may find massive evacuation settings uncomfortable. And I don't know that we think about this, but what about the first responders who are fighting this fire? And where's their mental health needs? Do we need to worry about that? But I got to tell you what, Kelly, this is a situation. You can see this fire from space. This isn't a little fire, right?
Yeah.
And it's really weird that we have this in the winter months. Usually we find this in the hot summer months, hence the nickname for California, the Golden State, because everything turns brown. But it's pretty horrible out there right now.
Yeah. This is something that we in EMS and public safety think about all the time. I don't think the public thinks about this, and good on the workers there that they're taking care of their people, and we're concerned about the welfare of our folks, and good on the health departments for looking out for their citizens' mental health in a very stressful time. But this goes back to, it kind of leads into my next story, that we ain't nothing till you need us. We're as a profession, we are content, and shouldn't be, but we shouldn't be content to be an afterthought to the general public until a crisis emerges. How much do you hear about EMS outside of COVID? During COVID, we're heroes, and we squandered that goodwill and let ourselves be pushed onto the back burner until something horrific happens to California. And then we leap, public safety and firefighting leaps into the breach again. And those citizens are incredibly grateful for that sort of thing. And when this is all over, they'll fade back into obscurity again, content to be ignored. But they're getting the support and the accolades that they need right now, and that's a good thing. But that leads me into my next one. You mentioned our listener from Fort Lauderdale. Well, this comes out of Fort Lauderdale. They're moving forward with plans to set up an EMS taxing district that could generate close to $55 million a year to help pay the salaries of the city's firefighters and paramedics. And this is the thing, EMS costs money. It absolutely costs money. And when people see ambulance bills, they freak out because the ambulance bill is so high. They don't understand the cost of an ambulance transport and understand that we're losing money on that the vast majority of the time. But what they really don't understand is the cost of readiness and how much money it costs to have ambulances available 24/7, keep a response times down. That is hideously expensive. And if you want good EMS care in your community, you're gonna have to pay for it. If you don't want to pay for it, then don't gripe about poor response times or inadequate care, because you wouldn't pay for it. And that's the predicament that Fort Lauderdale voters are getting right now. There is a particularly telling quote. A resident who lives in a condo on the barrier island there says, end result is you're paying out more taxes. They're trying to get blood out of a stone. This works out to, this tax would be up to $500 for a home with a taxable value of $590,000. The problem is we don't package that message in terms that the average homeowner and John Q. citizen would understand.
Right.
They look at that, they need $55 million. What the heck are they doing with that? You put it in terms, like Nancy says, it's the loaf of bread or the gallon of milk theory. This equates to an extra gallon of milk a week, or however you put that. Who can't afford a gallon of milk a week or a loaf of bread a week to pay for quality EMS service?
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, I mean, the current estimation, you talked about $500 for a house at 590,000 of valuation. Right now they're paying $456. So you're only talking about a 40.
Oh, Jesus.
You're only talking about a $44 increase. But you know what? $44 to some people is $44, right? So it's not like when you talk about this tax. But what's interesting is that just $44 will increase a $55 million a year, intake. And I think that that's pretty interesting in that as well. All right, I think we got time for one more. Let me go and look for mine. I just had it and I lost it. So just entertain me for a minute, Kelly, will you?
Oh, you want shadow puppets or
I don't know what you could do, but just while I'm looking
the classic Elvis hits,
Yeah, do you get anything? So, all right, I got it. So this is the one, and it's really, you could stop now. This one really kind of bugged me when I heard it. There were two stories that I think came out of the new administration, and we're not political by any means here. Kelly has talked about him being whatever the heck he is.
Staunchly libertarian. I hate
so
all
much.
politicians equally.
I almost said independent, but there were two stories that I think came out of the new administration that bugged me. One was we resigned or we left the World Health Organization, but this is another one that I don't know how I feel about, and I don't really want to talk about the feelings, but President Trump proposes reducing the role of FEMA during a visit to hurricane-battered North Carolina, where the president says FEMA has been a very big disappointment. Trump said to reporters before leaving to visit hurricane and fire damaged states. And I got to tell you, I mean, FEMA really kind of kicked off after the Katrina, Rita, way back when, which was pretty devastating. And I don't know that FEMA's done a bad job in their time frame. They had the opportunity for grants. They've helped a lot of EMS fire agencies with equipment. They're the people that are on the ground when things happen right away. So I really don't understand if we start to affect this agency where the benefit comes from, unless it's just a pure cost cutting. But I think FEMA's done a good job. And I think we've all those of us who are in EMS have had some interactions with FEMA contracts or, dealing with a natural disaster. But this really bugged me, Kelly, and I don't know why. And I just didn't like it.
As a libertarian, we think that government quite often is the problem, not the solution. And we can all do with less government in our lives, but I do not think this is the way. We know that at one time, and maybe even still, that FEMA is bloated and inefficient. It was horrific after Hurricane Katrina, a huge waste of money. They fell down on the job really bad, whether that was leadership from Michael Brown, who was soon canned, or something deeper and more systemic. There's a difference between saying a government agency is inefficient to saying a government agency is unnecessary. And FEMA is necessary. We have enough natural disasters in our country that some aid from the government in these widespread disaster areas. Keep in mind, it has to be a pretty horrific natural event to kick in for FEMA to even be involved. The president has to declare it a national disaster area. And the fact that you're openly talking about removing this sort of thing goes back to this whole crap about we ain't nothing till you need us. Okay, what's going to happen when the next fire or flood or hurricane or blizzard, for that matter, comes through and affects people's safety, security, and livelihood and their lives, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. President Trump, make FEMA more efficient. Don't take it away. That's stupid to my mind.
That's a libertarian in you.
I think it's, but it pains my libertarian soul to say that, hey, here's a government agency that we need, but I think we do need it.
All right, good. All right, this is it, man. I had a good time going down the news
Yep.
path. We used to do this regularly.
Yep.
So I think it's about that time, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, we enjoyed talking to you guys this week, and we want to hear from our listeners. News stories in your area that you want us to cover. We'd love to hear your thoughts at the show at ems1.com. And for myself and co-host Chris Cebollero, thanks for tuning in to Inside EMS, and we're going to catch you guys next week.